It's a Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen, April the 8th, 2013, and time for another edition of Weber on Sports. After a week off, a little vacation, we're good to be back. We have Michael Bree in the house today, the Waterloo girls varsity basketball coach. Michael will be talking about his team. They made a valiant effort, made the state finals, losing to Irvington. We'll talk about his roster. He'll talk about all the players. We'll get his opinion on tonight's National Men's Championship game. Of course, Louisville versus Michigan. Also talk about the ladies' championship game as well. So good morning. Hope you had a good weekend. The weather's starting to break a little bit nicer than it's been. And believe me, we could stand for some 60s, and we're talking about some 60s tomorrow. So and then, of course, by the weekend, they're saying mid-40s. So it's been kind of a weird weather pattern. But hopefully you'll get out and play some golf or do some gardening or whatever you want to do. But it's good to have you alongside. This is the Dog H. Weber with another edition of Weber on Sports. And without further ado, we bring in a friend of mine who I met a few years ago, Michael Bree, the head coach of the Waterloo girls varsity team. Michael, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
First off, Michael, a dream come true, a season that's certainly one of the best ones in local women's basketball. You had a team that certainly did not disappoint. You had an outstanding season. Talk about your team, if you would. Spend a few minutes, talk about your roster, some of the players you'd like to recognize this morning. I know you want to recognize the entire team, but talk about the season as a whole and what you thought of it.
Well, obviously, getting to the state finals was well, we didn't really we came into the season with 2 goals in mind. We wanted to win the league, which we thought we had a good chance of doing, which we did, and then we wanted to win sectionals, which we got to do that also. And I tell people all the time, once you get past sectional, you put so much time and effort into winning sectionals that anything past that, you really just don't have time to really think about that next step. And, once we beat Greece Odyssey, and then you go on, you beat Olean, and then you go on and you get to the state finals and semifinals. And, what a great experience for the girls. And, I've been a part of 2 state final teams in boys in Indiana, so I knew what it was kind of like. It's just it's so fast. It comes on you so fast, and the amount of time that you spend preparing, and you want the kids to enjoy it, but at the same time, it's so fast to get through. So it was a great experience.
Now, certainly your team is filled with outstanding talent. You were blessed to have a lot of returners. As you look for next year, you've got Haley Wright leaving the school, obviously graduating. Talk about your roster a little bit. Give us a little capsule about each of your players, if you would.
Okay. Well, obviously losing Haley Wright.
Right.
She was one of the first girls that I coached when I got here, and her stat line. If you look at her stat line, you would say just another player, but she did so much more. She was a vocal leader. She was that girl in practice that gave 100%, and she really improved. She started for me for 3 years, and she really just kept improving, and what a just a great leader. She never had a negative thing to say. So for me, losing her it's a big deal, and she was a great defensive player. So we're really going to miss her. Obviously we've got Lindsey Johnson coming back, who has she averaged 17 points a game this year, getting double teamed, triple teamed. She's just a scorer. If I had one word to describe her, that would be it. She just scores the basketball. So it doesn't always look pretty, but it goes in.
That's all it counts.
And then you've got Lauren Deming, who was Finger Lakes East Player of the Year, coming back next year. 15 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals, and I think she had 50 blocks on the season. So, as a point guard, that's something that's really hard to prepare for, and it's a tribute because she's really gotten better the last couple of years. Let's see, we've got you want to do all of them?
Sure, go right down. Yeah.
Let's see, we got Angie Davis. She'll be a senior coming back next year. She's a great shooter. She's really improved defensively. I think she had a game where she hit 5 3-pointers against Seneca Falls. You got Amanda Webb, who will also be coming back as a senior. She's a really tough-minded player. She actually hit the game-winning 3 against Mid Lakes there, second part of the season. You've got Jasmine Cole, who's been a 3-year starter, and again, she's another player. You look at her stat line, it doesn't say anything, but if you watch her on our defense, especially our half-court trap, she runs the baseline better than anybody else. She just constantly is moving. So, she's been honorable mention in Finger Lakes East for 2 years, and that's a tribute to her. You've got Chelsea Steinruck, obviously. She was probably the biggest reason we improved as much as we did this year, because you knew what you were going to get from Lauren and Lindsay, but then when you get another scorer, especially a girl that can shoot from outside, it just makes it that much harder for us for other teams to guard us. She was second team all league. She was a sectional all tournament team player along with Lauren and Lindsay. You've got let's see, Chelsea France, who's going to be coming back as a junior next year. What a great improvement she made over the season. She made a great. I think she had a 5-point against Olean, which in the Olean game that was up for grabs the whole time, and she scored 5 points for us there. Janae Larrabee, another junior coming back. She's going to be key for us next year in terms of how hard she hustles. Trying to remember them all.
I was going to say, yeah.
You got Whitney Conkey coming back. She'll be a senior next year. She really made some big strides. Very aggressive player. Emily Smith, a senior, coming back. We've got so many.
That's great.
Let's see, who else am I missing? You've got some of the girls that we brought up from the JV team that are coming back that are gonna come in. I think we've got 8 seniors coming back, and we've got 9 juniors if they. So we've got a ton of players coming back. So.
That's a good problem to have.
That's a good thing. Yes.
More is better than less.
More is better than less.
Let me ask you something. I think with the progress, and we'll talk about the team that defeated you in the state finals. Give credit to them. I would think that success breeds success in Waterloo. The young girls coming up in the JV level, even the ones below JV level. They see the Lindsey Johnsons and the Lauren Demings and the Steinricks and the Haley Wrights. I guess, like other programs, they want to be just like them.
Yeah, and if you look, we've got, it's tough for some of the kids because they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, because we've had the same starting crew for 2 years now, and or 3 years. So, we just keep trying to be positive with them and say, look, it's an open competition. You can come in and play.
Yep.
Our JV team did a really nice job this year. We've got a really good modified group coming in that will really push for some minutes. So we've got a lot of good talent. And like you said, I was amazed at the state games how many of our young girls were actually sitting in the stands and cheering us on.
That's great.
To make a 3-hour trip up there. So.
Michael Bree, the head varsity coach of the women's program in Waterloo, our special guest for the full half hour. A little bit about your background, Michael. You mentioned Indiana. Tell us about where you were born and where you went to school, how you ended up in Waterloo, and how you ended up being the varsity girls basketball coach.
Actually, probably what people find most fascinating is I'm from Milan, Indiana, which is, if you don't know, that's where the movie Hoosiers is based on.
Okay.
I actually went to school there. I went to Ball State University, which is in Indianapolis area, Muncie, Indiana. I actually took my first coaching job at Muncie Central, which was in real life the store in the movie Hoosiers. That's the team Milan beat in real life.
Neat.
So yeah, it was funny. My the head coach there, when he interviewed me, when I told him where I was from, he stopped the interview and walked out the door. So that was kind of a neat thing for me. How I got here, my wife's from here, Keisha. She moved down there for a brief while and was teaching in the same school. A couple of the kids in our classes tried to get us to go out together, and one thing led another. And now I'm in Waterloo, so and we have 2 kids. So
that's great.
In terms of getting the job, Keisha's brother, Kyle Velt, actually told Keisha that the job was open, and they're good friends with Joe Spizzato, and Joe just gave me a call one day and said, "Would you be interested in interviewing for the job?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" I mean, we were living in Gananda at the time, and
Gananda.
I didn't even know really that much about Waterloo, so it's fun. I enjoy it, and coaching boys and girls now. I tell people all the time, I don't think I'll ever go back to boys. Girls is just so much fun, and it helps having 2 girls now. So
yeah, that's right. And how old are your children?
Addison's 5, or will be 5 in August, and Kinsley's 10 months. So.
It's good, and I think I talked about Keisha, your wife, who I met at the concession stand. By the way, Waterloo has one of the best concession stands in the area, and we were there broadcasting the game, and I was getting ready to go on the air, and she recognized that I was working for FingerLakes1.com, and I ordered a hot dog, and she wouldn't take any money for it, and I tried to force the money on her. She wouldn't take it, so I finally took it for free. But I remember her meeting her, and if I recall correctly, she may have been pregnant back then.
She could have been.
I recall that, and but anyways, she was a sweetheart, and I really appreciate the free hot dog. As Jim knows, I love free, so kudos goes out to Keisha if she's checking out the show later tonight. So obviously, when you played Syracuse in the NCAA's, you had some heartfelt thoughts of Indiana. Of course, a school that needs, or a state that needs no introduction to basketball. We all know about the movies that have been shot there. Were you surprised at how Syracuse kind of took it to them a little bit?
I was, in a way. I thought Syracuse matched up well with this Indiana team just because how short their guards were. Mm-hmm. Syracuse has so much size up top there, and Indiana really struggled shooting the ball. Which, I mean, I think they were either 1 or 2 in the nation in scoring offense, and they just, it was an off game for them. And Syracuse played really well. So.
Well, kudos to Indiana and kudos to Syracuse. As you know, you have the proud distinction of having a basketball franchise in Indiana that travels well. I've never seen anything like it. Syracuse travels well, but Indiana, it's amazing. Yeah. You see that red in the stands, it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always going to be an Indiana guy.
Sure.
I'm actually more of a Butler guy, but the amount of the things that I got to be a part of in Indiana, I'll never forget, and hopefully I'll get to do that up here too. So.
Michael Bree's our guest for the full show. Now it's time to pay some bills. There's a bunch of sponsors that make this show possible here on Weber on Sports. Let's take a time out and hear who the great sponsors are, and then we'll come back, get Michael's views on tonight's men's championship and tomorrow night's women's championships. Coming up. Welcome back, everybody. It's a Dog H. Weber with another edition of Weber on Sports. After a week off, myself and Jimmy had some chances to relax. Jimmy took his family to Disney World. How'd that go, Jimmy? 8 million kids or 7 million?
It was thousands of people down there, but it was great. The best part of it was that Syracuse won on Thursday to go to the Final Four, and so I wore my Syracuse gear around the parks, and everywhere I went, people were giving me high fives, or Syracuse is in the house. And
I checked your Facebook page, and you were giving us updates on your trip. And my question is, I took Samantha. She's I don't know. I won't give her age. My daughter will never speak to me again. But way back when she was 8 or 9, we took her to Disney World. And back then, Jimmy, not that I'm an alcoholic, but you couldn't get beer back then. Now you can at the part of that facility, not at Disney, but the other part.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just gigantic.
Yeah. I want to know one thing. How long did you have to wait to get on a ride? That's all I want to know. 30, 40 minutes?
Yeah, not really many waits that long. It was we had a fast pass, which meant that you could go ahead and reserve a time to come back.
Nice.
But
fast pass.
If you saw a line, that most of the lines were like 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's not bad.
I remember taking Samantha and me and Mary and my wife, and it was like 95 degrees, and it was just brutal. And I was looking around for a beer stand, and they didn't have beer at Disney World. Epcot Center, that's what I'm thinking of. They have beer. They have different restaurants.
Yep.
So I find my way, if I go back, I might take, my granddaughter's 14 going on 21, so that may not happen, but we'll see. Michael Bree's our guest this morning on the Weber Show. Fantastic, outstanding, amazing season by the Waterloo girls. And yes, Michael, you played Irvington, which probably is a WNBA franchise. Any wonder why they won 4 straight state titles? Give us a quick capsule on that phenomenal team.
Well, like I was telling you earlier, they when you get that far, you only get a small sample of what teams actually will do. And we watched the game before, myself and Coach Jeff Panic. We actually went up to us, helped me scout.
Sure.
And we watched them against I'm going to butcher the name, Anna Ida, whoever they played before. But they just sit back in that half court man to man, and they were up 19 at half, and then all of a sudden the team they were playing came back, and Irvington should have lost. They missed two wide open layups right at the end of the game that would have beat them by a point. So we went the next day and we practiced for an hour to prepare for what we saw, and we didn't see anything that we saw.
Yeah, right.
They came out and pressed us, which is the first time we faced that all year. And our kids were a little shocked by it. And I told you off the air, I thought we were a fast team, and we are a fast team.
Yeah.
We get up and down, but Irvington was so much faster than us. And
yep.
when you got two Division I kids,
yeah.
I was telling a couple of our players, that's what a Division I
mm-hmm.
athlete looks like. And
exactly.
That's how fast they are. And it was an eye-opening experience for them. And at the end of the game, I don't think any of our kids. I think they were upset that they lost
mm-hmm.
because the season was over.
Sure.
But I think they knew that the better team won,
and they gave their best shot.
And we actually we didn't quit. We actually pulled within 12, and we had a traveling call that would have pulled it to 9 because
right.
Chelsea hit a 3, and things didn't go our way, and the better team won. And
yeah.
as we were coming back, Lauren came up and sat with me for a little bit and was talking. She said, we could have played that team 10 times and probably not beat them one time. So,
well,
that was a very good team.
And you know what? But the beauty of it is you got a team that's focused next year. You got a lot of people coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You don't look ahead.
Right.
One game at a time, the old scenario. Yeah. But it's not unlikely that you could be back again. I mean, it takes a lot to get there, as
right.
you know. Even though you got talent, and we all know you got talent coming back,
mm-hmm.
Mixed with what you have as veterans, plus you might mix in some people that you're not familiar with right now that might help you out. You got to take one game at a time, but based on paperwork and based on film and based on their abilities, you should be in pretty good shape. But you got to go out and win the games.
Right, and I think being in Finger Lakes East,
exactly.
That's such a tough
right.
conference, and our sectional's really tough. I think Newark moved up to A, but
mm-hmm.
you still got Palmac, you still got Batavia was really young, and
right.
You've got the other. You have Greece Odyssey that you're going to have to contend with again. So we don't look any farther past what we play next year. We got invited to the Utica Notre Dame tournament, so we're going to go play in that, and then our tournament's actually going to have Aquinas, Pittsford Sutherland, and Oswego in it this
nice.
coming year. So we're going to play some tougher competition, and hopefully we can duplicate what we did this year.
We talked about your team. We talked about, obviously we have you here, but talk about your assistant coaches. Give out a little kudos to them.
Yeah, and I think the biggest compliment I give is one of the biggest reasons that our season, we went through a little lull second half of the season where we weren't really playing that well, I didn't think. And I think the biggest compliment I can give them is once the sectionals hit, we had all 4 coaches. We had Coach Steve
mm-hmm.
Spino, who's been with me the whole time. But what a great job he does. He's a volunteer, so they don't get paid.
Right.
He came in, and we let them duplicate a lot of what the other teams were going to do, and he does everything for me. And then a new addition, Dave Deming, Lauren's father. He came in. He's a volunteer, and they do anything that I asked them to do. They got in and duplicated some of the size that we were going to see. And you got 45, 50-year-old men.
Yep.
I don't know how old Steve is. But I'm giving him a break on 50 probably. They got in there and were going as hard as they could and pushing the girls. And then Coach Ben Ramo, who was the boys coach for a little while, he wanted to help me out with girls this year, and he was a JV coach. And having him, it was a kind of a selling factor for me because I could look at him and say, look, what's a play that we can run here? And I haven't done that in the past, and he's one guy that I really listen to in terms of, let's try this for a second. Let's see what this happens. Coach Spino, he does a great job defensively. Dave did anything I asked, but Coach Ramo really kind of settled me down offensively in terms of let's run this and see if this will work. So, huge impact.
We got to get your opinion before we wrap this baby up. First, I got to get on my pedestal about the NCAA. I must tell you, Michael, I'm not thrilled with the starting time tonight at 9:25. I have yet figured out I know it's all about prime time, baby. Right. I know it's all about commercials. You'll get a zillion of them tonight. Yeah. But, you've got young kids. Everybody has young kids. They want to watch the men play and the women play. But to 9:25, excuse me, that is ludicrous. That game won't finish till midnight tonight. And, I got to be honest. The NCAA talks about morals and being ethical and doing things by the rules book. But you know what? For them to put together a Final Four package, which would work out to be some $450 a ticket, and then you got to pay hotel and airfare. You're looking at outrageous amounts of money. I guess they speak in one side of their mouth, and in the other side of the mouth, they stick it to the fan. To me, 9:25 start is ludicrous, but it is what it is. CBS obviously have the coverage. Give us your thoughts tonight. Louisville versus Michigan. I told you off air that I think Dieng and the other big guy in the middle who did nothing the other night. I think Silva, who did nothing the other night. I look forward to a Louisville romp. I think Louisville will win the game easily. Your thoughts on the game?
Well, I agree with you. It's 9:25 is ludicrous.
Yep.
But I'm a Big Ten guy, so I'm gonna call the upset. I'm gonna go Michigan. So Michigan by 8.
All right. Well, Jimmy, your opinion on this? I know you talked about Michigan not being overly impressed by. How do you look at the game tonight?
I thought the last game of the year was Saturday night.
It's Jimmy looking at his SU graduate form.
Michigan, Syracuse should have beat Michigan.
Sure.
If we played our B or C game, we would have won. But they played their D or F game, Syracuse did. And even then we had a chance to win, but we had some foul calls, questionable down, that kind of hurt us. So, Michigan came in second in the Big Ten.
Yep.
Indiana came in first. You saw what Syracuse did to Indiana.
Right.
And, you saw what Louisville did to Syracuse in the Dome and then in the second half of the game in Madison Square Garden. I think Louisville's too good. They're too deep. They're a bit of a team of destiny this year. Michigan's too young. I thought that their youth was going to catch up to them on Saturday when they played us.
Right.
But it didn't. So I think that, Michigan's really young. Robinson, McGarry, freshman.
Full freshman.
Stauskas is he another freshman?
He's a freshman.
He's a freshman as well.
Yeah.
Hardaway Jr. is a junior.
Glenn Robinson.
He's freshman. So I just think they're a young team, and Louisville's an experienced team, and this is a big stage, and
be interesting.
Yeah, I got Louisville by probably about 8-10 points.
So do I. But Michigan, the youngest team in the NCAA tournament by far. Certainly, the women now go at it tomorrow night. The final will be Connecticut versus Louisville. Louisville have an opportunity of being the only second university in the history of the NCAA finals to win both the men and women, if that works out. Connecticut did it in 2004. Louisville, a decided underdog to Connecticut. Looks like Connecticut's on a roll. Most of the prognosticators, Michael, are calling a Connecticut romp. That should be an interesting game as well. That's tomorrow night.
Yeah. Connecticut's got the kid from Cicero. Or whatever.
Yep.
So I watched a little bit of the Notre Dame Connecticut game last night. And that's that was probably the championship game.
I think so. Yeah. And by the way, we talked about Jim Bam off the air. Jimmy, of course, getting needled by the media once again. His ability to handle the post-news conference. People, Jim says that him and Andy Katz kissed and made up, but it amazes me that he just gets unglued during these post-news conference because I think the media just likes to get under his skin. And again, they were asking him if he's coming back next year because I guess they're wondering if his time is up now, even though we know he's a Hall of Famer.
If you're Boeheim, you just get done losing this game, you come in and sit down, and that's the first question they ask you. And he said it a million. He never said he's retiring. He never said. Matter of fact, he said he is coming back several times. So they're going to ask him again.
Yeah, I know.
They're trying to get a rise out of him,
and it always works.
And I did, yeah.
I look at Boeheim in these post news conferences, and I was telling Jimmy, I just love to watch this guy because. Do you ever have pepperoncinis, those hot pepperoncini peppers? Do you ever try one?
I don't eat them.
You don't eat them? Well, if he ate the hottest ones in the world, that reminds me of his face. He just gets so quenched up, and he just gets so ballistic he wants to punch somebody in the media. And it just kind of, as Jim pointed out, there's a banter going on. And you mentioned that the media member just kept on asking follow-up questions. He wouldn't let it go.
He's giving it back to him.
How would you like to be Mike Hopkins? Waiting on the sidelines to take over that job, which is contractually done, I understand. So it'll be interesting to see. But they always pick on poor Jim. I look at it this way. Jim's right. Boeheim could stay there until he's 100. The court's named after him. He makes over $2 million a year. He's got a beautiful wife, nice kids, does a lot of good things for charity. But I just don't know. I think Jim's right. There's just some media members that just like to get under his skin, and they're successful at it because he gets so inflamed that he don't want to talk, and he ain't going to say nothing.
They know they get under his skin.
Oh, they do. Yeah. So the Jim Boeheim story.
Wait till he gets down into the ACC. Some of these Southern reporters get a hold of him.
They just beat him up.
They will.
Oh yeah. Well, folks.
Hey, before we go, I just got to say one thing.
Yep.
This is the final year of the Big East Conference.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you look at the Final Four, men and women. 5 of the 8 teams represented in the Final Four, and the men and women are from the Big East Conference. Yeah. So it's a pretty good way to go out. I personally would have liked the Syracuse-Louisville final. Would have been a great way to send out the conference, but it's funny that a conference has to dissolve when there's obviously the best, in both men's and women's.
That's right.
It's all about money.
Yep.
Hey, and by the way, for next week, we have a special guest, a unique guest. He's coming by phone next week from Newark, New York, Wayne County's wonderful village that I spent a lot of time going over there broadcasting basketball, football games way back when the legendary coach Gary Miller used to coach the boys basketball program. Success, you talk about success. The Newark boys team was unbelievable. But years ago, I remember there was a phrase called for the greatest baseball player in the history of all kind, Babe Ruth. They call him the Great Bambino. We're having the Great Blandino coming on this show. Peter Blandino, the mayor of Newark, New York, the village of Newark, who's sports-minded. We'll talk about his politics. We'll talk about his administration. We'll talk about how he got involved in politics and also his role in helping out with his administration, the Newark Pilot Baseball Program. Our baseball field over at Coburn Park, what an outstanding complex it is. And he has done so much with his administration to help Bob and Leslie Ullman run a first-class program in Newark. So
you see him at the ballpark. You see him at all the high school games, all the Newark high
He's
school
everywhere.
games.
He's everywhere.
Big supporter of local sports.
And what made me talk about bringing him on the air, he's going to be by phone next week, is I met his wife at Turning Stone. We were down to doing a little gambling last weekend. My wife made a couple of bucks. I lost everything, including my glasses. I had to get a pair of But I met her on the elevator going down to the casino floor, and her name is Helen, and she's a sweetheart. And it gave me some thought about his involvement, and I thought I'd get him on, and he's coming on. He's agreed to come on next week via phone. The great Blandino, Peter Blandino, will be our special guest next week here on Weber on Sports. Michael, a few final comments about the ladies that you had the proud distinction of coaching. You obviously had a great season, and congratulations from all of us, including Jimmy, myself, and everybody.
Congratulations. It was fun to
watch.
watch.
What a phenomenal year.
It's fun to be a part of it, and hopefully we'll make another run at it next year and see what happens.
Well, thanks for coming in. We'll have you back real soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, Michael Bree, ladies and gentlemen, our special guest here this morning on the Weber on Sports Show. We hope that you have a great week. And by the way, for you golf nuts, this is Masters Week. And I got a feeling Tiger Woods will add number 15 to the hardware. He is playing superb golf. Even though Rory McIlroy made a right decision to play at San Antonio over the weekend, he had his game on fire as well. Masters Week starts on Thursday, ESPN the first couple of days, and CBS over the weekend. Again, thank you to Michael Bree for joining us here on the Weber on Sports Show. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your week. That's a look at sports my way.